How to choose your spiritual father. Indeed, when we enter the path of the love for God, we have seen that there is a series of trials that will happen. But these tests, to discern oneself, it is very difficult. For example, when a nun returns to the monastery, and at some point, she gets bored. She is bored at prayer. How can one discern by itself that it is simply experiencing a night of the senses? It means that the pleasure has disappeared. The Lord wants her to learn to love Him for an absence of vocation. Well, you need a spiritual father. And therefore someone who knows with caution, practical caution. So he is not sure of himself but who knows the usual path of grace in a soul. The question is it better to choose a saint? Does it mean someone who is so focused on the Lord, who looks at the finality, the beatific vision? He is waiting for the return of Christ. Or is it better to choose a theologian? Well, clearly, you have to choose a theologian. But a theologian who is not mistaken. If it is a bad theologian for whom the goal is earthly life, to be happy on earth, as much as having nothing at all, he is beside the faith. It is necessary either a theologian who has really followed the formation given by someone like Saint Therese of Avila or the Father Eugene of the Child Jesus or Saint John of the Cross, Saint Therese of the Child Jesus. So all the mystic doctors. He knows what the goal is and he knows the way with this caution. So he must be a theologian. He must not have been mistaken in theology. And he must be a careful man. Not a proud man, who is sure of himself. I remember one day a priest who said to me, "In 2 minutes I understood the person and I can't tell him which way it must take. Except charisma, it's impossible." And indeed, a little later, this priest made serious errors of discernment. So, modesty, patience, research, but theological knowledge. This is the best spiritual father. Hence the importance, for those who have a spiritual life, to help those who arrive to be trained in mystical theology, so with Saint Therese of Avila. To know these things. To learn to help. In a Western world where there are almost no more priests, the laity must get started. We will need it. Can we change our spiritual father, if we ever made a mistake? The answer is yes. Saint Therese of Avila has used perhaps 100 before finding the right. To know Saint John of the Cross. However, be careful, once we have found the right, it is not because it corresponds to our desires, that he agrees with us. No. It is because we understand that he can really lead us to progress, even when he does not agree with us. His counsels are intelligent, wise, and he aims to make you love God more than your neighbor, according to what our psychology is and the age of the spiritual life in which we live.